Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Exceptional Relationships. I'm your host, Jason Safford, founder of Exceptional Results Now, here with my beautiful co host, Ronique Clarke.
Hi. Hello, everybody.
And Ronique, as our
Hope you had a good,
exceptional,
productive week.
as our exceptional relationships coach. Today's episode, we're going old school. Percy Sledge, take time to know her.
Mhm.
So,
Take time to know her. Yes, and take time to know him too.
yeah. So take time to
Mhm.
know.
Yep.
You're letting our audience, obviously, our audience should put on the Percy Sledge song so that they know the mood that we're
hmm
going for.
hmm
But you're letting them know this is more than patience. This
That
isn't
is true.
this isn't about just waiting. This
That's
is
true.
about actually being proactive
Yep.
in taking time to really
hmm
learn about somebody.
Very true.
And for a lot of people, I think the mistake, just up front, I'm gonna identify this, and I think the
hmm
intention behind this school is to help people understand that taking time to know somebody isn't waiting for them to show you who they are, but
That's
it's
true.
really making the effort to learn who
hmm
they are and show them who you are.
True.
Okay.
Exactly.
So give us some background here. Why are we focused on this today?
Well, a lot of just because I am from Jamaica and a lot of things have been happening in Jamaica in the relationship realm where a lot of men and a lot of women as well are going into partnerships or unions with people, and things will things will unfortunately occur that are very tragic. And when you really investigate the situation and really get into the meat of the matter, you realize you never really knew this person to begin with. So that is why it is important, as the Purchase Ledge song say, to take time to know, because at the end of the day, when certain things happen, you can't just yes, it's going to be very disheartening to utter the words "if I only knew," when you already had the opportunity to really know the person. So, for example, we have a lot of I don't like to get too graphic, but rapes and killings down in Jamaica now,
Yeah.
where the men will feel as if just because they spent a certain amount of money on this woman and invested resources into this person, they feel as if they own them. You don't own anybody. It is just your turn because the girl gave you your chance.
Mm-hmm.
When your turn is over, somebody else will get a turn. However,
Mm-hmm.
if it's in the short term or the long term. And I actually had a discussion about this with someone yesterday, and I had said to this person, you, as a rational thinking individual, would not invest your resources, your time, and resources either mean time or effort or emotions or even financially into a company when you don't know the background of the company and the background of the history. So why would you take up your hard-earned money and invest it into someone who you don't know? And I remember the person saying to me that it's not like they picked up their money and went and invested in this person just because just at the time they were giving them a specific story, and they felt for this person. I said, okay, but at the end of the day, did you ever, in all the times that you were interacting with this person, you ever spoken to her parents? Have you ever had a conversation with people closest to this other person who knows exactly who this person is? and how this person operates. And I'm putting in the context of the man spending on the woman. Have you ever met her parents? Have you ever met her siblings? Have you ever met her best friends or her closest friends to really see what the sort of person she is and the sort of a mindset that she has and the value system that she has? Because usually those are the people who really know you well, the people
Yeah.
who you can really and truly be yourself around. So you can't really say that you really know somebody until you really get into their psyche and really find out exactly how their brain operates.
You
Because
know,
how their brain operates, that is going to be the deciding factor on whether you have invited an investment into your life, or an asset into your life, sorry, or a liability into your life. Because
I want to,
a lot
yeah,
of people are liabilities.
I wanted to jump on that because I think what you said is so important. And I
Mm-hmm.
realize it's important to step back and acknowledge that
Mm-hmm.
even though you identified specifically a crisis going on right now in the
Mm-hmm.
island of Jamaica,
Mm-hmm.
this is actually a worldwide issue.
Yes.
And it's a challenge to both men and women in
Mm-hmm.
understanding something that we've talked about in a previous episode, which is intentions.
Yes.
And the fact that when you start engaging in any type of communication with someone
Mm-hmm.
and you don't present your intentions up front,
Mm-hmm.
the other person may take your intentions at face value. So
Mm-hmm.
to identify the specific conversation that you just shared, a man who has the intentions of having a physical relationship with a woman that could be more than just
Mm-hmm.
physical. He wants to have an intimate relationship. In other words, he wants to be intimate with her and they could be boyfriend, girlfriend, but it doesn't
Yeah.
have to be anything more than that. So,
Mm-hmm.
so it's a very superficial relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Feels that if he spends money on her and she
Mm-hmm.
accepts this investment of time and money,
Mm-hmm.
therefore she must be committed to him physically
Yeah.
and not engage with anybody else
Mm-hmm.
in any activity, as well as she must make herself available to him.
Mm-hmm.
And if she doesn't do this, he feels a sense of rage that will cause him to take
To
his
do
anger out
something
on
that
her.
you might very well regret later on
Right,
in
because he's saying you're a bad investment, and rather than walk away from this bad investment, he wants to, make an example
life. Mm-hmm.
or destroy it
Mm-hmm.
for whatever purposes so nobody else can experience it.
Ah, exactly.
So the problem that, and I want our listeners to really understand where I'm going here. The problem is that because the two parties didn't really establish intentions up front,
Mm-hmm.
the direction of the engagement and the relationship is
Mm-hmm.
headed for disaster
Uh-huh.
right from the beginning.
That is
Now,
true.
I'm going to bring this up to you because I think it's important, which is that for a lot of women, and this could go the other way too in terms of men, but
Yeah.
but I want to address it simply because you're talking about the violent outcome of
Yes.
a relationship that does not have intentions clearly stated up front. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of women will claim a a fear right up front. In other words, right now, because of what you're saying, women are afraid for their lives, but at the same time, they're also afraid that if they don't speak to men and they don't
Mm-hmm.
talk to them, that they're also going to be at risk of violence,
That is true.
happening to them.
That is.
So because of this, there may be a fear to present your intentions up front because you're afraid that the person is going to react violently.
Mm-hmm.
So in a sense, psychologically, the person may or may not present their intentions up front out of fear. So it's really, really
Mm-hmm.
important that I think that we state that taking time really begins by not only presenting the intentions, but also then acting out
Mm-hmm.
on those
Yep.
intentions in a meaningful way, and the other person observing. So it's also your observation of what somebody's intentions are and how they act
Wow.
on intentions.
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. And that is the whole gist of taking time to know that whoever you are inviting into your life is somebody who will appreciate what you bring to the table, and vice versa too, because it's not just men providing for women, it's women providing for men as well. We're not looking at men trying to baby women or women trying to baby men. It has to be equal. So everybody have to know exactly what they're getting themselves into, and everybody have to take time to know exactly who this person is, because I find that a lot of people find themselves in situations and they really didn't know the person from jump. They've never met any member of their family, never met friends, never met acquaintances to really see how they interact on a day-to-day basis. And
Mm-hmm.
that is very important for you to know how this person interacts with their parents, what kind of environment this person is coming from in terms of how they were raised, the
Mm-hmm.
sort of value systems their parents have. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? And because that is what molds us. That is what makes crazy people we are now. What we have been taught by our parents.
Mm-hmm.
So those sort of questions, I know a lot of people don't like to get into because apparently it's too serious. But nothing if you're inviting somebody else into your personal life, so you have to be you have to be diligent. Do you do diligence, man?
You just I want to key in on a word that you used a couple of times, which is
Mhm.
invite.
Yes.
And that, again, for our listeners, I think is really important to understand
Hmm.
that going back to that same example of what's going on in Jamaica,
Hmm.
you're inviting people to uh, confront you or not confront you based on your energy and how you present yourself.
Exactly.
And for men and women, you have to think about how are you presenting yourself to the
Hmm.
world,
Yep.
and what is that going to invite into your life. So if you present fear,
Hmm.
people can smell fear,
That is
and
true.
that's going to invite people who see your fear and may prey upon
And
that.
they will want to come in and take advantage of that fear.
Right, right. And additional to that is that you may repel because of that fear. You may
Mm.
repel people who are good for you because they see your fear and they say, I don't want to be troubled with that.
Yeah.
Because they see your energy is negative.
Hmm.
Whether you realize it or not, when you project fear,
Hmm.
fear is a negative energy that people who are positive say, I don't want that in my life.
That is
I
true.
wish you well. I hope nothing bad happens to you.
Exactly. Hmm.
But
But
the
I can't
last thing I want to
condone
do,
that.
yeah, is have to deal with your problems because you can't overcome your own fears.
Hmm. Yep.
And you know, in thinking about that song, Take Time to Know, it really is also figuring out not only how aligned or misaligned two people
Hmm.
are, but
Hmm.
I'm going to bring this up because you always come back to this. It's obviously one of your core values, but it's really going inside
Hmm.
yourself. and knowing yourself. So when
Mm.
you learn the other person, when you take time to learn the other person, you're also having an opportunity to
Self. Mm-hmm.
learn more about who you are,
Mm-hmm.
and really find out the things that
Mm-hmm.
you
That
like,
is
and if you
true.
like the same things that you used to like, or if this other person may introduce you to
Uh-huh.
new things that you may like. And
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
that's,
Because life is all about growth.
yeah. And I was just about to say, I think that's one of the opportunities that we always look forward to when we start a new relationship, but when
Mm-hmm.
we get it, we don't really appreciate it. I'm going to use a perfect example, and you may
Mm-hmm.
or may not appreciate this, but
Yeah.
you hear it so much online. Whenever you start a new relationship, you ask each other, what's something you've really wanted to do,
Yeah.
right? And if you could do anything in the world, what would you do?
Yeah.
And we ask these questions to get a little bit of an idea of the person's values, but also their wild side. What's something that they may be, that they've never done, that they've always wanted to do, so that you have an
Mm-hmm.
opportunity to say, oh, is that something that I would do too? So I'm going to
Ah.
use one that always cracks me up, and that is jump out of an airplane. Okay.
Well, you wanted to fall to an airplane?
No, 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 no. See, I think it's crazy. But so many people, and especially women, always, I hear this, more and more often, that one of the things they always want to do is jump out of an airplane. Now, to me, it's
Why?
why. It's a
Why?
perfectly good airplane. Why would you want to jump out of it? But obviously there's a thriller rush. And for our listeners, you are entitled to your own opinion.
Mm-hmm.
However, if you decide that this person is worth jumping out of an airplane with, take time to understand it's not about actually jumping out of the airplane. It's
Mm-hmm.
about the whole experience
Experience. Ah, you see?
of yourself coming comfortable
Mm-hmm.
with jumping out of the airplane,
That's
of
true.
watching the other person as they get excited about jumping out of the airplane. Then it's
Mm-hmm.
about jumping out of the airplane and that whole experience,
Uh-huh.
and then the follow up in terms of
Mm-hmm.
what was it like for you, and do you want to do this again, or would you never do this again in your life,
And it is true.
because you were
Exactly.
paid millions of dollars. And
Mm-hmm.
that is the overall, not only bonding, but the new direction that both of you now have for yourself to then share with the
Mm-hmm.
other person. And
Ah, see?
and and we fail to realize that. And so
Mm-hmm.
many people, I think, and this is where I want to bring it back to your experience with dealing with people in relationships. How often do people have these experiences and really appreciate it?
Barely any.
And why
Barely.
is that? A guy, let's use a typical one, that a guy takes a woman on a fantastic date, spends all sorts of, money on luxury items to make her feel like a queen. At the end of the date, he has an agenda, and she knows he has an agenda.
Mm-hmm.
But do the two of them really talk about the date or understand what the real opportunity is here?
No, no,
Why not?
no. Because the thing about it is when you have that, here's the thing. When you have that sort of conversation, you know what's gonna happen? The proverbial mirror.
Explain. Keep going for our listeners.
You know what the proverbial mirror is?
Tell our
You are going
listeners
to be
what the.
confronted with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be confronted with yourself and what your true intentions are and what you want to really do.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. Yep.
And when you think about that, for a woman to go on a date like this, knowing that at the end of the date, the guy's intention is to get her into bed, there's no
Hmm.
other intention. Obviously, it's a romantic effort to get to the full seduction.
Yeah.
At what point, if she's not comfortable with that seduction, does she come confront herself and say, I don't want this to go anywhere? Or does she just ride it out and let it happen? And then
It depends on the person.
yeah.
It depends on the person. Because you know what? I know just because of how I was raised, I would never let it go on to that point, right? Just because I know that if I want to take myself out somewhere nice, I live within I save and I do whatever I have to do so I can take myself out on that nice expensive date or whatever. But a lot of females, what I'm realizing, a lot of females don't think like me.
Mm-hmm.
And they will intentionally go out on these dates with these men just for the experience of having a nice expensive meal.
Mm-hmm.
And one or two things happens. You either have the person who will the Jamaican term is pilsing out a man
Okay.
or namming him out,
Okay. You
or
have to
you
explain
have
to our listeners what
namming
this
him
means.
out means in Jamaican terms. I'm gonna put Jamaican lingo in this. So Jamaican lingo in terms of namming him out. Okay, you eat, you go on the nice, like you go on the nice
You
dates,
fill
have
up
the
your
nice
belly.
meals,
You
and
get your
then
belly full.
get your belly full, and then you run.
And then you
Or
run.
oh yes,
Usain Bolt
or
style.
or or you have another group of girls who will just let things happen.
Okay. So you have
And
one group that'll run like Usain Bolt. You'll have another group that will allow things to happen. And then what?
mhm. Well, I don't know what happens. I don't know what happens to those girls because I was never one of them. I
Okay.
don't know.
Okay.
I,
So,
I do not know, but what I will tell you is this: people need to have these sort of discussions before
and
they
during.
and during. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, because the thing about it is at the end of the day, when you're having these discussions, you are really trying to really vet the person and feel the person out and really say, okay, is this person worthy of me dedicating time, effort, um, sometimes money into seeing how this union can potentially grow.
Right. And if I could add to that, I think that one of the things that our listeners really need to understand and appreciate for themselves is that
Mhm.
if you're on the giving end or on the receiving end of a very concerted effort to romance,
Mhm.
or to push the uh, engagement, the relationship in a certain direction.
Yeah.
If you like it, you need to let the person know. So
Yeah.
let me use this as a perfect example. A guy takes a woman on a date. They go to a very nice restaurant,
Mhm.
and obviously it's very expensive. And she, looks at the menu and she orders what she wants. One of the important things is to, acknowledge, that there's a beautiful restaurant and that, everything looks really nice. And also to find out from the other person, do you have any recommendations? Have you been here before? Is there anything
Mhm.
that you would particularly like? What would be your recommendations? Not just for
Mhm.
the person, but also for the waiter to have some type of engagement.
Yeah.
Then while you're eating the meal, let the person know, is this good? Do you not like it? What are the things going on both
Mhm.
sides?
Mhm.
Afterwards, you're also talking about, um, what are the things that you really enjoyed about the date,
Ah. Mhm.
and then if you are enjoying it, will it continue? Or if you've had enough and you don't want it to continue, let the person know.
Or
You
no,
had a
exactly.
wonderful date. I really appreciate the effort you've made, but I just want you to know that I need to end the date now. And it has to do with me. I'm not ready to, go forward. But I want you to know that I had a wonderful time with you, and this was a
Yeah.
wonderful experience. And
Mm-hmm.
I think and that has to do with self-esteem and self-confidence.
That is true.
But for our listeners, it's really important to understand that it's not just for your self-esteem and self-confidence, it's for the
For the
other
other person. Ah.
because they're wondering, can
Yup.
I push further or should I step back? Because if I
Uh-huh.
become forceful, now all of a sudden you get into this issue of violence and rape
Oh
because you
yes. And
may
you know what
be,
happened to?
yeah, go ahead.
I know, and you know what happened to a lot of men in this world when they hear after the meal and after all of that,
Yeah,
they'll say, and the person will say, okay, I had a nice time, but no,
yeah,
that is that is when the ego part comes.
yes. Oh no, you're not going to say no to me.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And
Mm,
part of it is the way in which it's done. In other words, what the anger and resentment is about is, wait a second, so you're going to wait till now to tell me
uh-huh.
no rather than to let me know up front, in which
Mm-hmm.
case maybe I wouldn't have spent this money on you because
Mm-hmm.
I'm not about to waste money on anybody who's not to give me something. And at least that way, so if you
Mm-hmm.
go through the whole thing and say but no without any signs beforehand,
Mm-hmm.
that's going to be an issue.
That
Whereas
is true.
exactly what I'm talking about is that during the meal, if you're saying, this is wonderful, this is really lavish, but I want to tell you right now, I'm not interested in anything happening.
Yeah.
In which case, if the guy says check, let's go, at least you're in the clear. You don't have to worry about any pressure.
Yeah, that's true.
Now you know this person's intentions right up front. And if you're not
Mm-hmm.
aligned with those intentions, hey, no problem. And not to say that's on you, but it's
Mm-hmm.
important for you to take charge of what is your own intentions.
Ah, exactly. And it is important to know, and this is what I've said to a whole lot of people, when you come across that kind of situation and the person says, okay, this is a good experience, but no, just say, okay, thank you for the opportunity. And it was a good time and walk up. But the thing about this, it's not about that at that point. It's really just about you taking yourself out and having a
Mhm.
good experience for yourself and
Yeah.
including somebody else in that experience.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying. I would love for the listeners to understand that when you're
Mhm.
doing these things, it is not so much to try to treat somebody, you are trying to treat yourself, and you're trying to
Mhm.
treat yourself good,
Yeah.
you're trying to treat yourself well, and you are just including somebody in that experience.
That's exactly right. And I think you just really highlighted something that is so important for people to understand is
Mm-hmm.
that if you're taking somebody else out, don't take them to a place that you don't like or that you're not interested in to show off to them that you can afford to do it and not enjoy yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, going to jumping out of an airplane, it's about the experience.
Experience.
And it
Ah,
has to be an experience that you like. Don't jump out of an airplane because you want to impress the other person. And you're
exactly.
terrified. They're going to
Exactly.
see it all over your face. They're going to
Mm-hmm.
see it. And the worst part about that is, that not only are they going to see it all over your face, but afterwards you may find out that they're not a really good person.
Mm-hmm.
They traumatize you
Mm-hmm.
because of the fact that, you have that fear.
Mm-hmm.
They don't, have that respect for you to acknowledge that, hey, you're afraid and, maybe this isn't a good idea. That is
Mm-hmm.
it, so it's so important to recognize that if you're not comfortable with something, or if something doesn't sit right with you,
Mm-hmm.
you have to, be
You have to
in
speak up.
charge of that. Yeah, you have to be in
You have
charge
to
of that.
speak up. If you're not comfortable with something, say it straight up.
Yeah. So in wrapping this up, going back to the song, with Percy, why did Percy, you know, I always look at it from the standpoint of these Motown lyrics,
Hmm.
these lyricists. Why do you think that he wrote the song in the first place?
Why do I think so?
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
don't know
yeah.
what anybody I know about me.
Mm-hmm.
When you listen to the words of that song,
Mm-hmm.
this man saw a pretty girl, beautiful girl,
Mm-hmm.
wanted to marry her, and all he was obsessed about is coming home from work and seeing her,
Mm-hmm.
and being around her. And his mother had to come to her, go to him and say to him, say, yo, take your time,
Yeah. Yeah.
take your time. Love doesn't come overnight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It take work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And unfortunately, he didn't listen to his mother.
Ah. So
And of course, things happened to him, and he saw things that he really wished he would have seen from before.
yeah.
And there was his mother's words in his head.
Yeah.
Take time.
So
Take your
so
time to know her.
right. So in other words, it's a learning lesson song for
Hmm.
our audience, and that's why I say our audience needs to listen to this song, because it's not only
Yeah.
a beautiful song, but it's also a learning lesson
Lesson,
in
exactly.
heartbreak that you have to. And this is the other thing I just want to really finalize on this point, that understand that it's okay to experience heartbreak. In
That is true.
fact, it's a wonderful thing. And I know that sounds crazy. People go, why would you want to get your heart broken? Nobody
Mm-mm.
wants to.
Nobody wants
But
to.
if your heart is broken in pursuing love,
Hmm.
you at least have the love. You pursued it. You
Yes.
can say that you
Yes.
went after it. You can say that you gave your effort, that you really understand what it means to love.
Hmm.
And so that allows you to be more loving and giving for the next person.
Exactly.
Whereas if you are afraid of heartbreak and you've never had it, the truth is that you really lose out on
That is
so
true.
many wonderful things. And what the song really provides is, I didn't listen to my mother. I didn't take time to get to know her the right way, because
Uh-huh.
I was so interested in loving her. And so therefore the love that I gave her wasn't necessarily reciprocated, number one. But number
Hmm.
two, it was all about me. It was
Exactly.
about, I wanted to feel a certain way, around her, and she
Hmm.
gave me this feeling, but I didn't really take time to know her
Hmm.
and, understand everything that goes into a relationship with this particular person.
Person, exactly. And the thing about it is, no one can love you. No one can love you like you.
Yeah.
No one can love you like you. So that is why
Say
it's
it
important.
again.
No one can love you like you love you. So guess what? We all need to ensure that we are loving ourselves the correct way and treating ourselves the correct way, because that is the only way we will be able to love somebody else correctly and know how to love somebody else correctly.
And I also want to say that the more that you learn to love, start with loving yourself,
Mm-hmm.
is the more that you're able to invite people in who see
To love
that
you, who's
and
and want
say,
to love
I
you.
want to learn from you and learn how to love the way you love. You
Ah.
will invite people that just want to take advantage of that love, but
Mm-hmm.
more people will actually see what you're about and say,
Mm-hmm.
I want to learn from you, how you love yourself, because
Mm-hmm.
they're drawn to that confidence you have in yourself. They're drawn to that certainty,
Energy.
that
And that
energy.
energy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That is very true.
This has been a wonderful conversation, Ronique,
Yeah.
as always. You are fabulous. Any last words for our listeners?
Any last words? I have a couple. Love yourself. Be yourself. Be you. Most importantly. And please, I implore you, take the time to know the people who you want to be with. Take your time. Take your time. There isn't any rush. And if anybody is rushing you, that means that they're not the person for you. And they're just really there's something you obviously have that they want if they're rushing you.
Yeah.
So take your time. Take your time, get to know the other person, get to know what their value systems are, what their belief systems are, how they were raised, the environment that they were raised in. Talk to them mother too. If even if you have to investigate talking to their mother and finding out how the mother is, how the father is, if the parents are still together. Those things are important. So you need
Mm-hmm.
to look at that. And also, most importantly, look at when you find out that information, how does it resonate with you?
Yeah.
How does it resonate within you? How does this person and how they live their life, how does that align with who you are and how
Right.
you live your life? Because at the end of the day, it's all about you, and it's all about your evolution and your growth, and it's all about you progressing to be the best person that you can possibly be for yourself, in order for you to be the best possible person that you can be for the next person.
Awesome. And I will add, take time to know yourself.
True.
All right. This has been another wonderful episode. As always, I'm so grateful for you. And to our listeners, we're grateful for you as well. And we'll see you next time.
Next time, see ya.